still look at it today is, if there's something else you really want to do, but and it gets back to this cash thing I talked about earlier, you really need the cash. Look at it as one thing is funding the other thing. So maybe you're taking something that isn't ideal, isn't exactly what you want, but it's going to help you fund that other thing. And what that means is, though, you're going to be working a lot, right? You're going to be working 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week to make it happen, but that's what you have to do, right? So don't just take the job to dig the job and hope something happens. Take the job and use it as a vehicle to get something else funded. And you're working nights and weekends, and don't watch TV all the time. If you're going to watch the Kardashians, at least turn the volume down, right? Whatever. While you're working on the other thing. And there's so many great ways to start with things these days, and you don't need a lot of infrastructure to start them with the internet and so forth. But take that job, but look at it as a way to help you fund something else. That's the way I look at it.
And to follow up on that, it's not just about cash. It's also a way to build your network. The person who works with you at, say, the dress farm maybe has a parent or a sibling, or perhaps they're pursuing a degree as well. It's another really good way to build your network to do those things. And you can also always, in any job, pick up a skill that you will be able to market as something that would be helpful to the next employer. So just thinking about it in the long term and about the different kinds of capital that you can acquire for yourself while you're in that job.
And embracing the journey. I worked at Home Depot while I was in college. Not knowing in my back of my mind that was going to be my permanent position, but when I got there, again, I excelled at what I did. I embraced the job, I took the job, and I made it my own, basically, and wanted to do the best I could do there. It was very easily seen by the management that was there, and I got moved up, bumped with pay raises, and I was offered jobs throughout the company. Now, ultimately, I didn't take it, but I made there's other opportunities, and it sounds crazy, but McDonald's is a corporation. A lot of people don't realize how calculated that company is. They know how long it takes to make a hamburger, how long it takes to dump fries. All that stuff is very calculated. There's people within the company that's their job, is to figure out if they can knock off a second on making that hamburger, and they sell 1 million hamburgers a year. Well, that's 1 million seconds they just knocked off in the time, and they're being more productive. So working your career from the bottom up is, I think, the best way to do it, because you're working from the trenches and working your way up. Our company personally promotes from the bottom up anyway. So an entry-level position in 10 years may not be an entry-level position. That person, we have foremen superintendents that started off as part-time truck drivers. So again, working your way through it, again, it's more that's opening.
That's very good. I think probably the worst thing you can do is take a job and then go into it with the attitude that it's beneath you and not give it your own. So of course, if you take a job like that and then you do a really crappy job at it, you are not only helping the employer favors, yes, you're burning a bridge.
Adding on to what Jennifer said about acquiring those skills while you're in that job, I took a job with a Hispanic marketing media company, and myself being a marketing instructor and also in marketing management, with that demographic that's growing, I found out a lot of knowledge that I didn't know that I can now share with my students, and also for developing target markets for my own company, so it's very valuable. There's another question from the audience. How have you negotiated salary and or benefits? This is always a key question for students about to graduate. And what is a professional manner to do so, and what are important things to ask for? I guess kind of combine it all into one question. So negotiation of salary and benefits, and how to go about it.
I'll start with
that. Inside secret.
So I'm a really good business person and very good negotiator, salesperson, but I'm really bad at negotiating my own salary for some reason. I still have a board that's part of it. I still have a board that I report to. It's hard. I think it's a matter of being informed, right? Understanding what's out there in the market, right? So look at salary surveys. There's a lot of information got on the internet. You can try to figure out what your role is worth, what are benefits. But probably more importantly is don't just focus on salary and benefits, right? I've always been willing to maybe take a little less salary because I've ended up in environments that have worked out really well for me that give me other opportunities. So I've always enjoyed working in smaller companies because they've afforded me the flexibility to do some other things. Like, for instance, I teach here at Drexel, at the business school. If I was in a big corporate environment, maybe making 10 or 20% more than what I'm making now, I probably wouldn't be able to do that teaching job. Not that teaching pays, Paul, a lot of money, but I love it. It's a big passion of mine, something I really enjoy. So I think you have to look at the whole thing, right? Which is what environment you want to be in, what salary, what are the benefits, what flexibilities do you have, and try to take that as a complete package of things over and above just the money side of it. And that applies, I think, to a lot of things in life. It's not just always about the money, it's about the things that make you happy.
So I've only been with my employer for a couple of months, and as you may or may not know, the area of law is particularly hard hit recently with the economy. And I had a firm that I was interested in working with. They weren't certain that they had funds to hire another attorney. What worked out for me was looking at it as an entire benefits package. I'm a new mom, and it's very important. New attorneys also usually don't have any time for their families or for anything outside of their practice. So I was able to negotiate a part-time schedule, which meant that I was able to meet the salary needs that they had, and I was able to meet the time needs that I had. So yes, certainly look at that as a global picture, and perhaps think a little sideways sometimes as going forward as well.
The professional manner, I have people that report to me, and we do yearly evaluations, and it's time for pay raise and things along those lines, and the president sits in as well. I can tell you what not to do. The best thing is, in a professional manner, is be straight up and honest with your employer, but don't try to put your back up against the wall. We had one person that came in and said, well, I got an offer from somebody else for this much money, and we told her to go take it. So again, you got to be careful how you present, and be very cautious, not cautious, but be very, again, the word professional comes to mind, but be careful how you present it. You don't want to put your employer in a corner where they feel they have to do something, or if they're going to make a decision, they're going to make a decision until you go pound sand, because if that person's working for me, I don't want them to work for me. So if you present it in a manner which is, look, I wasn't looking for this opportunity presented itself, and I'm considered taking it. Can we talk about it? Something along that line, saying rather than, I got another offer, what are you going to do? It's not, you know what I mean? So you say, look, I want to stay here, I want to be part of this company, but I have another offer that was unsolicited, and I'm thinking about considering it. And that opens the door in a much more polite manner rather than shoving it down somebody's throat. So that would be professionalism, I would say, is everybody gets defensive very quickly, and we're all being defensive. This employee was with us for 6 years. She had a child, and while she was on maternity leave, the owner of the company made up the difference in her pay while she was gone. So there was a lot of things that were done, and then a year later, she came back and said, I'm leaving, and presented that matter. So it was, he got a little crawl up his back for it. So again, that would be my advice there as far as professionalism.
What were some of your expectations or preconceived perceptions about graduate school experience that you found out that just weren't true? Some people, they were myths about graduate school, but after you went through the experience, you found out that they just weren't true.
I'll tell you what I thought when I went to business school. I'm, again, an engineer, I'm going to business school, I'm thinking, what the heck am I going to do here? And people in business make things up just as much as people in engineering do. So
That was your perception, right?
So it's, I was talking about this with Jordan here earlier, in engineering, we tend to be very precise people, and when things fail, we learn from them. It sounds crazy, but when something fails or breaks, we learn from that. We know what works, what doesn't work, we know how strong concrete is, we know how strong steel is. But in business, you don't know what the market's going to do. And I can tell you that if anybody that say they can predict the market, they're fools. Because nobody knows what the interest rates are going to do 5 years from now. We have a new president. There's so many different things that are dictated by the market right now. And I'm sure, Chuck, doing a performer for your company in 5 years, what's the next thing? I mean, CDs, some of you guys might not even know what a CD is. So those things don't exist, and the market changes very fast. So I think going to school, there were some of the things I was worried about, that I wasn't going to be able to keep up with everybody, but everybody's trying to keep up with that.
I think it was more workload. In medical school, they know you're going to work really hard. And we all work 80 hours a week. Now it's regulated by the ACGME, so we legally cannot work more than 80 hours a week. But at the time that I was starting medical school and my predecessors were in medical school, it was easy to work 100, 120 hours a week. And that was sort of the mentality of medicine and the people that were training us and that were talking to us about, you know, you're going to go to medical school and you're going to be working 100 hours a week and you're going to be on call and you're going to have this and you're going to have that. And I was really scared by it. Luckily, I'm incredibly fortunate that I'm in the 80-hour work week ACHME requirement, so I am not permitted to work more than 80 hours a week. But I will say that one of the misconceptions I had was that I would always be energetic. I think we were talking about this earlier, is, you know, in medical school, when you graduate medical school, you're not even close to finish your school. You know, you get your MD when you finish medical school, but then you do a year of internship, 2 years of residency. I actually did an extra chief residency year, and then I did 3 years of pulmonary critical care fellowship. So I'm 32 years old, and I've never had to go out and get a job, other than, you know, waitressing in high school or whatever. But, you know, it's one of those things where developmentally, I think in medicine, we're very, very stunted. We haven't had to negotiate salaries. We haven't had to, work, I mean, I'm doing it now because I'm graduating, or finally graduating, but the misconception that I had was really that I would always be energetic and always be able to do this, and I'm finding that as I'm going and interviewing for jobs, it's really, different things are important to me, and I wish I had sort of taken note of that a little bit earlier in my career. I might have made some different choices, maybe a little less ambitious, but at the same time, you know, when you're young, you're excited to go grow. Kind of, yes.
By the way, is this,
Golden pregnant.
does it scare anybody that we're all talking up here about 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week, you know, multiple hours, you know, working, family, things like that? I mean, that's the truth, though. I mean, it's 40-hour work weeks are.
It's not going to find you. You got to find it. So, you know, I leave the house every day. I'm up at 5 and out at 5:30, and I'm getting home at 6, 7 o'clock at night. So, unfortunately, it affords a lifestyle. I mean, my wife's able to stay home with my children. It's a beautiful thing to have somebody come see the children, but I have to sacrifice not seeing my children. So, and again,
I did a Facebook post yesterday that said, I can't wait for the day where I don't actually have to sleep in the hospital. I got a lot of comments.
I don't even have this. I just refuse.
He doesn't have time.
It's hard with the twin beds.
Before this panel discussion, we had an opportunity for networking. So, and we're going to have an opportunity to network afterwards. So, can you explain what role networking has played in your career path and/or your career transitions, and how they've helped you and enhanced your experiences?
So I'll jump in on this. So networking is just huge. I'm somewhat biased by the fact that amongst all the other things I do, I'm also president of a networking organization in the city or in the Philly area called Mobile Money Mid-Atlantic. It's basically focused on mobile technologies, and we're the 7th largest networking group in the Philly area according to the Philly Business Journal. A couple thousand people. We do monthly-ish events where a few hundred people show up, and we get to talk about mobile technologies and do a bunch of panel discussion like this, and educational programs, and there's a lot of networking. And at one point in my career, I was very poorly networked. I was living here in the Philly area, but my corporate office was in Minnesota, and I was traveling out there a lot, and I wasn't connected here to the Philly region. And I didn't realize until I actually went to grad school how poorly networked I was and how important it was to begin to build a network. And in the past few years, 5 or 6 years, I've developed an incredible network of lots of people from the business side, from the university side, and so forth, that have helped me in an immense number of ways. I get to meet, even tonight, you know, my bride tonight is doing something in the hospitality industry with mobile technologies. It's kind of starting some stuff, you know, meeting people who I can help me, that, you know, you can talk to. I think Jennifer, you talked earlier about, you know, kind of getting out there and just networking and so forth. Over and above your day job, I think it's one of the single biggest things that you can do is getting out there and finding people, talking to people, and just understanding what's happening. And you do have to be somewhat selective ultimately about the places you do go, but spend that time. You're going to work a lot, and you're going to have to be out in the evenings networking, but it'll pay dividends.
I also think, though, that you shouldn't be scared away by the word networking. Some people are very introverted, but I think the idea of going to networking events for them is an extremely difficult thing to do. And also tend to draw people who are in the same work areas that you're interested in. And sign up for some of those things. Don't think that networking means that you need to go to something that's labeled as a networking event and go approach strangers and try to make small talk and then lead into a conversation about your work area.
Two quick points. Paul and I were talking earlier, and one of the, I'm a simple person, so it's not what you know, it's who you know, and that really does hold true. You can know everything in the world, but if nobody can help you do it, or you don't have a network around you, whether it's friends, family, whatever it may be, it doesn't help you. So, I can tell you from my time on the board of governors here, I met a gentleman that set our family up with life insurance and stuff, because that's what he did. So, again, it was a trust thing. I trusted, I learned, I met that person, trusted that person, and now he's taking care of my family, and he has, unfortunately, all my money. But again, it comes down to, those type of things that, that are there. My family, we just recently moved, and we had the neighborhood had a block party, and I came and I met the chief counsel of the Philadelphia Phillies. So, I mean, it was, he's one of my neighbors, and, you never would have known that if I didn't go out to the block party with all the old people. But again, you can't be afraid of it to your neighbors, and, some of them scare you, but unfortunately, you don't know who you're going to meet. So, and again, obviously, we all have an outgoing, personality up here. That's why we're here, part of it. Sometimes you gotta make yourself a little bit vulnerable and find out who you can be, because you never know who that person is sitting next to you. That's really the way I always look at it. If I'm at a bar, I always talk to the person next to me. I always buy that person a drink.
Oh, you're one of those annoying people.
I am. But you never
So
know.
when I'm on a plane, one of those people won't let me read.
No, I understand that. But you never know who you're going to meet. So don't be afraid to open up an opportunity wherever you are.
Sure, networking, I never really knew what the word meant until I realized that I was networking, and I want to tell you a little anecdote just because I think it's really powerful and really encouraged me to continue to do these kinds of things. So I had read a book called, seems like I read a lot, I don't actually, but anyway, I read a book called My Stroke of Insight, which was written by Dr. Jo Taylor, who is a neuroanatomist who suffered a stroke, and she wrote about it. She wrote about the experience of having a stroke and all of these things. She was on the New York Times bestseller list, and I don't even know why I read her book. But I remember when I was reading it, I was like, she writes in the same tone that I would like to write, and I was starting to write my book at that time. And so I sent her an email to drjill@whatever.com, and she wrote me back. And we started a little email chat, and then after maybe 3 or 4 exchanges, I told her, well, I'm also a writer. And then one thing came to the next, and she heard about my idea and hooked me up with her book agent, who was, obviously she's a very sort of famous woman in California. She's had multiple New York Times bestseller authors, and she's like a really prominent person in the publishing world. And I had no idea that, how any of this worked. And the next thing I knew, I had one of the top agents, in the field. So through her, obviously I got started the book deal and all of these other things. And she taught me how to network. And it was really interesting. And I was so afraid. She somehow got me into TED Men, which I don't know if you know, the TED Talks. They're on CNN.com usually. And so she got me a scholarship to go to TED Men in Washington. And TED Men is really interesting. If you've seen the little blips of the talks that they give, they're really great. But what happens in between those talks is really amazing. It's just a huge networking session of all of these people from all different areas, doctors, lawyers, business people, and engineers, everyone you can think of in this room. And I was so intimidated because I'm like 5'0", and these are like power suits. And I was like, oh my gosh. And my agent literally forced me to go stand in the coffee line over and over. I was like high on coffee. And I was like, oh my God, I can't talk to any more people. And to the point where I was chasing down, literally running across this room, chasing down CEOs of the aging, organizations for me that are really, really big. And by the end of that 3-day meeting, I was networking my off. And I was not afraid to go up to these big business suits. And I think that was a really important lesson. And it really was, in the beginning, just standing in the coffee line next to someone and making some stupid comment oh, it's really cold in here. And the next thing you know, you're chatting and the business cards are going by. And I must have gotten 25 business cards, really big level people. that have endorsed the book and have just helped me to make it successful. So network, 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 but don't think of it as network. It can be simply standing in a coffee line.
If I can add on to what Lauren said, all of you started. If I can add on to what Lauren said, all of you started with 30-second elevator pitches or commercials for yourself.
Thank you.
And it's not just about telling about yourself, but also providing service to other people. So look at it as a mutually beneficial relationship that you can form with people. So thank you for that. Thank you for those examples. I appreciate it. Another question I have is, knowing what you know now, would you do it all over again? And if you would, what would you do differently?
I think Jeff and Chuck both mentioned, let fear make my choices early on. I think there are things that I stopped myself from doing because I was afraid of failing, or perhaps they were just too different from everything else that was going on right then. So I wasn't sure how to take that leap, and I wish that I hadn't done that, especially because I think that when you're younger, there's more room to mess up.
You start over.
You can start over again. So I wish that I had taken more chances.
Would I do it again? Absolutely in a heartbeat. Would I do anything differently? You can always go back and second guess yourself and say, what would you do differently? But it wouldn't put me in where I'm at today if I did it differently. So part of me said I'd probably, do it all over again. I don't know if I would get married in June, start MBA in September, and have my wife get pregnant in December and have a kid the following year while I'm halfway through MBA school. I don't know if I would do that again, but that was pretty nuts. Trying to, working, trying to figure out school and have a screen big, so trying to figure out all those things. That would be the only thing I'd try differently.
Well, you took 10 years.
Everything is easy now, so we decided to have a second one.
Well, you got that from Drexel because you were in 10-week semesters. So.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I mean, you can always second guess yourself, but I'm absolutely happy with the choices I made. Sequence of things, maybe not so much, right? Maybe I shouldn't have gotten my MBA and started the company and have 5 kids all at the same time. Maybe that's not such a good thing. But, it worked out. So I would absolutely do it again. You can always look back and what you do differently, but maybe it doesn't matter so much. Just plod along.
I would definitely do it again. I don't think I would make any changes. I married a doctor. I think thinking about it, I would prefer to have married a dry cleaner. Yeah, we talk about mucus in school a lot. But, there's just small little things about medicine that I wish weren't so. I don't like working 28 straight hours.